Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Ed America. If this is your first time here with us, Ed America is the American Center under the U.S. embassies here in Indonesia, and our mission is to provide space for everyone to learn more about the American culture through our events and program. My name is Nora Fakira, and I will be your MC for today's evening. Today at America, in another collaboration with Education USA, proudly present, Speak with Confidence is your U.S. admission interview. And this session is the second part of our Speak with Confidence series, designed to help prepare for your journey to study in the United States. And today, we will be exploring interview techniques and also communication skills that can help you express your idea, experiences, and goal with greater clarity and also confidence. And before we jump to the main session, first, we will be giving a quick questions of the day for you, our online participant, and the question is, true or false, preparing questions to ask your interviewer can show that you are genuinely interested and engaged during a university admission interview. Submit your answers in our online platforms and make sure you stay tuned until the end of today's event because we will give a special shout out for you who answered it correctly. And without any further ado, we will get to the main session. And let me introduce our moderator. She is one of the Education USA advisors. Please join me to the stage, Latupono.
Good evening everyone. Yes, terima kasih sudah hadir ke part 2 of Speaking with Confidence. Sebelumnya aku akan memperkenalkan diriku dulu. Aku Mei, salah satu Education USA Advisors based here at America. Teman-teman udah tahu atau kenal dengan Education USA atau sudah pernah ketemu sama advisor? Boleh angkat tangannya, udah tahu Education USA? Banyak ya, senang banget nih. Teman-teman udah banyak yang tahu, ada 500 orang dari sisi sebelah sini, terima kasih banyak. So Education USA is an advising network under the US Department of State. We are here to help Indonesian students especially yang berencana atau sedang dalam proses application untuk studi ke Amerika Serikat di level S1, S2, atau S3. Or if there any other program that you are interested in, bisa ngobrol sama Education USA advisor. Nah, teman-teman, it's very important for you to get to this karena kita akan bagi-bagi voucher English Proficiency Test. Nah, untuk bisa dapetin English Proficiency Testnya, teman-teman akan harus book nih our appointment melalui QR code yang ada di sini. Jadi teman-teman yang mau foto dulu boleh silakan atau mau screenshot teman-teman online bisa juga untuk dapat tangkapan layar di sini. Okay, so we have this challenge. Jadi kalau teman-teman sudah datang secara in person, today you're a step closer to win the English Proficiency Test voucher. Karena salah satu persyaratannya adalah harus mengikuti sesi ini secara in person di at America. Jadi teman-teman untuk bisa memenangkannya vouchersnya salah satunya juga harus pasti ya follow at America on Instagram dan juga register as a member in our website. Kemudian again come in person di tanggal 7 Mei yang lalu dan tanggal 19 Mei which is today. Dan berikutnya adalah teman-teman required to complete a minimum of 3 advising sessions dari tanggal 9 Mei sampai tanggal 9 Juni. Dan advisingnya boleh secara online atau in person. Nah teman-teman kalau misalnya nih masih belum booking appointment, saran aku segera aja nih karena 9 of June is coming so soon, right? Dan kalian harus booking minimum of 3. Jadi kalau misalnya kalian mau booking more than 3 sessions, we're welcome. Oke. Kemudian pasti you must present their US University Application Progress Report during the advising sessions. Jadi kalau misalnya teman-teman nih dari nol banget kayak aku masih meraba-raba nih Kak kalau mau daftar ke US University. Tapi at the end of the sessions, which is nanti di sekitar bulan Juni, we hope that you guys have a progress karena that's part of the eligibility. Jadi teman-teman kasih lihat progresnya seperti apa. Jadi by the end of this, which is in June, we will announce siapa yang berhak mendapatkan voucher the English Proficiency Test. Oke, without further ado, teman-teman, kalau misalnya nanti ada pertanyaan, kita bisa ngobrol-ngobrol setelah session. Because we're not going to spend more time to talk more about this, but we're gonna focus on ace your US admission interview. Kira-kira di sini teman-teman ada yang sudah pernah sampai ke level interview nggak? Which is probably in your admissions atau mungkin ketika apply for beasiswa. Ada yang udah pernah sampai di titik interview? Kalau belum, nah kita belajarnya mulai hari ini. Because I have my best friend here. Let's welcome Lauren Chow.
Okay, hello everybody. Selamat malam. How are you today? So nice to see you. Are you excited to learn about acing your admissions interview? Yay! Who here is who's first time in At America? Have you all been to At America before? Okay, who here came to the last session about confidence speaking in US classrooms? Did you come to my friend Parker, right? Yes, that's great. So I'm glad to see you here at this session tonight. If you didn't come to the last one, then I hope that this one is also helpful for you. So yeah, today we're going to be learning about how to speak with confidence, specifically in your admissions interview. So if you are going to apply for a university in the US, maybe you'll get an interview and then maybe you want to know how to do well in it. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So just a little bit about me first. So my name is Lauren. I'm from Boston, Massachusetts in America. And I earned my bachelor's from Carleton College, which is in Minnesota. And I earned my master's degree from Lesley University, which is also in Massachusetts, near where I grew up. So after that, I actually spent about 7 years working in the US in different higher education organizations. So I worked for like a nonprofit organization working with university students for a while, and then I also spent 5 years working for Babson College in Massachusetts. After that, I came here. So now I work for Aminef, or Fulbright Indonesia. Maybe you've heard of it. So I work together with Parker, if you came to the last session. And I love living here in Jakarta and getting to meet people like all of you. My favorite Indonesian food is nasi kuning. And the favorite place that I've visited, besides living in Jakarta, is when I visited Makassar. So if anybody is from Makassar or has heritage, okay, maybe not. I hope you get to go someday. So now that we've talked a little bit about me and my background, I would love to know a little bit more about you all. So we're going to do just an activity where we raise our hands if the sentence applies to you. So get ready. So raise your hand if you enjoy sharing about your culture with other people. Yay. Okay, in the front row here, what's your culture?
I do think my culture is just if Indonesian, especially in Jakarta, they like to eat food with their hands. And then when I met my online friends from the US or UK, I usually mention it like we use our hands to eat food and blah blah blah, and just like that.
Wow, that's so cool. Yay, thank you so much for answering. So yeah, that's a really cool piece of Indonesian culture that you could share with other people. Okay, now raise your hand if you have hobbies outside of your work or school. Who has hobbies? Okay, in the pink shirt, what's your hobby?
I really love dancing.
Dancing. I love dancing too.
Yeah.
What kind of dance do you do?
Like a modern dance.
Modern dance. Awesome. Thank you so much for answering. Yay. Okay. Raise your hand if you've ever been the leader or on the board of some kind of club or organization or business. Who's been like the president or the secretary? Okay, green hijab. What was your position?
When I was in college, I was the leader of English club.
Wow,
Yeah.
nice.
In my university. Okay.
The leader of your university's English club. That's a very important position.
Thank you.
Okay, good job. Thank you. Okay. Raise your hand if you want to go to university in the US. That's a lot. Everybody. Okay, awesome. Okay, and then I think you're the striped shirt here, striped outer. Which university or universities are you hoping to go to?
Yeah, actually, I want to go to Columbia.
Columbia.
Yeah, for a LLM program or Master of Laws.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's a really great school in New York. Okay, thank you so much for answering. And then finally, raise your hand if you've ever done an interview before for a job or maybe for a school or anything else. Okay, pink shirt again. What was your interview for?
I used to interviewing for a job, and it was awful actually because that was my first job ever, and yeah, I didn't apply for it, so I just canceled it because
Oh no.
I was too nervous and I just didn't know how to answer them like professionally.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry that you had that experience, but hopefully with this session we can learn some tips and tricks about how to do interviews, and this will be for university interviews, but hopefully the advice can also apply for job interviews or anything else you might do in the future. But I totally empathize. I think job interviews can be really scary, so I completely understand why you'd want to skip it. Okay, thank you so much for answering. Okay, good job, everybody. Thank you so much for participating. I really want this session to be kind of like a workshop, and especially because there's a few of you, I want this to be very like personalized advice for all of you. So if there's any questions that you have throughout or anything like that, feel free to ask. And I'll also be doing some activities throughout to kind of help you think about the material and help you practice some things. So be ready to participate. Okay, so it sounds like everybody here has some experiences. Maybe you have some hobbies. Maybe you've, you want to go to university in the U.S. You enjoy sharing your culture with others. So that's going to come in handy later. But first, I want to ask you, true or false question. The most important part of a college interview in the U.S. is how smart you sound. Who thinks this is true? It's really important for you to sound really smart in the interview. Okay, who thinks this is false? One person. You are correct. This is false. So, yes, the most important thing is actually not to sound really, really smart. It's actually to show your personality. And we're going to talk more about this in a little bit. But I just want to kind of like start off with this because I think it can be a common misconception. People get really scared about interviews, just like we were talking about, whether it's a job interview or your college interview. It sounds really intimidating. You think, oh my God, I have to come off as this really intelligent, really perfect person, and that's actually not the most important thing. So we'll talk more. Okay, and then one more quiz question. So US university interviewers actually care about A, your academic performance, B, your extracurricular activities, C, your leadership potential, D, your community involvement, or E, all of the above. E. Okay, good job, everyone. Yes, that is correct. So, as I was saying, yes, you as a whole person matters when you do your college interview. So, not just your academics and how smart you are, but also, do you do extracurriculars? Like all of you raised your hand when I asked if you had a hobby outside of your school or your work. Your leadership potential. So, have you been on the board or have you had a leadership position before in something? Your community involvement. So do you get involved with helping out your neighbors or in your community organizations, your church, your masjid, anything like that? All of those things are really important to you as a person, and actually universities in the US care a lot about you as a whole person. It's not just about your academics. Of course, that's important too, but I really want to emphasize that they do holistic admissions, and so all of these things are great to emphasize in the interview. So I saw all of you raising your hands for, you like to share your culture with others, you have hobbies, things like that. So that means all of you have what it takes to ace your interview. So don't feel intimidated. You can do this. Yes, let your personality shine in the interview. This is the number one thing I want you to remember if you get to that stage in your application process. Okay, so now that we've started with that, I want to just give you an overview about what we'll talk about, the different sections that I'll talk about today. So first we'll have understanding, I don't know if there's a pointer. Okay, first of all, we'll have understanding U.S. interview culture. So we've kind of started with that a little bit. I'll talk a little bit more in the next section. The second section will be, I think, the longest part. We'll talk about how to tell your story effectively. So we'll go over some common interview questions, strategies to answer them, that kind of thing. Third, we'll talk about some professional communication skills. So what are sort of some of the nonverbal aspects of the interview? How do you communicate professionally? And then finally, we'll talk about asking thoughtful questions, which I know the leading question that Kat Naura said was related to this. So that will maybe give you some ideas too. And then finally, we'll wrap up and talk about a summary of the session. So starting off with understanding U.S. interview culture. So I know we talked a little bit about, I was talking about how your personality is important and everything. I think it's also good to know what to expect for when you go for your interview. So interviews for universities can either be in person or online. So if they're in person, sometimes it will be at a cafe where you can meet somebody. It might be in another public meeting place. If you are able to go to that campus, I think that might be hard if you're living here in Indonesia, but if for some reason you do make it to the campus, you can always interview with an admissions staff at the university. So make sure if you do ever visit the US, you can schedule an interview if you're gonna go to that campus. You can also do interviews sometimes at recruiting events. So if you go to a university fair here, or maybe they have some kind of other event that's held by the college or the university here, you can do an interview there sometimes too. And the interviews are usually conducted by either the alumni of the university or an admissions staff member. So the staff member is pretty obvious. It's somebody who works for the university in the admissions team. But I think something that people don't always realize is that many interviews are actually conducted by alumni of the university. So this could be, if you're here in Indonesia, maybe it's an Indonesian person who went to that university before, and now they live here or they live wherever is near your home, and you can do an interview with them. So I think that kind of sometimes makes it a little bit less intimidating, right? If you're just talking to somebody who was a former, who just studied at that university, and maybe they're from the same place as you, or they live in the same place as you. So that can be a nice thing to do. And then in terms of what to expect otherwise, make sure you are on time to the interview. So no jam karet here. Make sure you arrive early or on time. And then finally, interviews will be conducted in English, of course. If you're going to university in the US, you should be able to speak English. But yeah, don't stress too much about the English. It's okay. I'll talk about this more later, but it's okay if your English is not perfect. Just be able to communicate at least. And in terms of the format, so just so you know kind of what the general order of events is when you go for the interview. So like I said, make sure you arrive early. You never know what can happen. Maybe you have some traffic going there, or maybe it takes you longer to park or to find the exact location than you think. So make sure you plan to arrive early. You'll start off when you meet the person, you can have some small talk with them, basa-basi. Maybe if you're in a cafe, you could order some food or order a coffee. And then the main part of the interview, of course, is they will have some questions about you. So the interviewer will ask you some things about yourself, which we'll talk about, ways to answer those. And then after that, not everybody knows this, but you actually also should ask some questions to the interviewer. So there will be a section for that, usually at the end. So expect to answer mostly questions about yourself first, and then you can ask questions too. And then finally, at the end, you should of course say thank you, and then you can wrap up and say goodbye. So that is usually the general structure for interviews. This goes for, I would say, also job interviews in case you do one of those later. So yeah, I think something I want to emphasize, especially in contrast to maybe an interview you would do here in Indonesia, US university interviews can feel very casual. I think especially for Asians or like people who are used to more formal interviews. There's going to be a lot of the small talk about getting to know you, getting to know each other, especially if you're talking to an alumni of the university. This is usually somebody who's just volunteering their time because they really loved studying at that university and they want to help give back to the university by helping to interview incoming students or incoming applicants. So yeah, it can feel very casual, and that's okay. Make sure you are still very polite, very respectful, but you don't have to be like too formal or too stiff. It's okay to really let your personality show. For example, also, especially if they're American, the interviewer might ask you to address them by their first name. I think sometimes that can be uncomfortable for Indonesians, but just know that that's very normal in America. It just shows that they're being friendly. And yeah, the goal is to always get to know you beyond what they can see in your written application. So I know if you are applying for universities, you're probably spending a lot of time making all of your essays really, really perfect. You're trying to like get all your test scores, the English test, your other standardized tests. You're making sure your transcript looks good with all of your grades. And of course, all of those are important parts of your application. But this is the admissions team's one chance to see your personality. You're not just going to be these words or these numbers on a page. You get to show what you're like and maybe talk about things that they don't get to see through your perfectly polished essay. What hobbies do you have? What communities are you part of? So this is their chance. So yeah, again, I want to underscore authenticity, not perfection, is the key here. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have this perfectly prepared answer for every single question. Just try to be honest, try to be yourself. You don't have to make up something about yourself that's not true. They really just want to get to know you. Okay, so that's the first section. Any questions first about US interview culture? We'll have some Q&A at the end too, but I just want to make sure I check in on the way in case anybody has questions. Okay, so now we're going to talk about how to tell your story effectively. So we'll talk about some common questions that you might get asked and strategies for answering them in the interview. Okay, so I want to start off by doing a quick activity. So picture yourself there. I want you to each imagine yourself at your dream university. So I know a bunch of you raised your hands when you said you want to apply for university in the US. So think about whether it's Columbia or maybe it's Harvard or maybe it's, I don't know, University of California, something. Wherever your dream university is, try to think about that place and imagine yourself there. Maybe you look like these people on the grass sitting at your university. So how do you think you will grow and change in your time studying there? What will you learn? What are you hoping to do and study at the university? Maybe you want to major in business and you want to learn more about that. Maybe you want to do an internship in America while you're studying. What else do you want to do and how will you grow? What will you do for fun? What kinds of friends do you think you will make? What kinds of activities will you do that maybe you don't get to do at home, and then when you go to university, you can try something for the first time. Maybe if you already do something like dancing, then you can also dance at the university. How will you get involved with the campus community? So if you have certain clubs or organizations that you are part of here, maybe you want to join that one at university in the US. Or maybe you want to try joining a different community too. So try to just think about yourself at that place, at your dream university. Okay, and so the overall strategy for the interview is whatever the picture of yourself was at that dream university, put that image in your interviewer's head too. So again, interviewers are trying to get a sense of what is this person like, what is their personality like, and how would they fit into this university as a member of the community. So if you can connect all of your answers when they ask you questions, always try to connect your answer to how you would be going to that university. So for example, usually the very first question they're going to ask you is some form of tell me about yourself. Tell me a little bit about you, tell me about your background. That will usually be the first question you get asked. And so when they ask you that, some people, if they haven't prepared for this, they will say, oh, 18 years old and I have a cat and I live with my mother and father, and those are all great things to know about you. They're all true, but it's not necessarily going to help the interviewer know about how you will fit in at the university. How will this person be as a student? So if you were thinking about, oh, I want to major in sociology or psychology, you can talk about that. You can say, oh, I'm really interested in psychology from a young age. I've always been interested to know, how do people's minds work? How do people's brains work? I love studying it. I love reading books about it. And so in my free time, so that's why I want to study it at the university. Extracurricular activities. You can say, oh, I'm in my university's English club, so I think I want to, get involved with that at your school too. So basically, the interviewer is always thinking about what kind of person do they want to also become an alumni of that university. So if they are from University of Texas, they're thinking, okay, could this person be someone that University of Texas is proud of someday to call an alumni? So everything that you answer, try to connect it to those things. Put that image in their mind too, of you at their school. Help make them imagine it too. Okay, so maybe you can turn to somebody next to you if you're sitting near somebody and talk, what other questions do you think you will be asked during the interview? So I just told you one. Tell me about yourself. What else do you think they would ask you? Maybe take like 30 seconds to talk with the person next to you. Okay, who has an idea of what kinds of questions do you think will get asked in the interview? Yes.
I have two in mind. The first one is your proposed of study, and then the second one, your aspiration after the study.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think both of those are perfect questions that you will probably get asked. So yeah, what are you proposing to study there? And what do you see yourself doing after you graduate? Yes, I think those are two very common questions. You're very likely to get asked those. Thank you so much for volunteering. Okay, so that's actually my very next slide. So good job, you predicted correctly. So the number 2 question that they will almost always ask you is some form of, why do you want to go to this university? Why do you want to study in this school or this course or this major? So be prepared to talk about that. I mean, that's the main reason that you're going to university, right, is to study something. So this is a great opportunity for you to show off how much you know about that school and its programs. So make it as specific as you can. You hopefully, when you've been doing your application, you've been researching the school. You know at least what major you want to do there. You have to have some reason for going, right? So make sure you make that clear to the interviewer. It should be as specific as you can to both you, like your situation, and the university. So explain to them, why do you want to go to this school and not any other one? You could say, oh, like, this, I know your university has a really unique internship program that helps place students in the field that I want to go to. Or maybe you can say, I know that Professor Smith is a really, like, a big leader in the field that I want to study. So I really want to take a class from that professor. So yeah, any specific details that you've come across in your research, this is a great time for you to show that off. And yes, of course, how does this program connect to your academic and career goals? So things you want to study academically, things you want to do professionally. Yeah, sharing any of that will make a very solid answer to the interviewer. Okay, another common question that you may get asked, I would say number 1 and number 2 are always, tell me about yourself, tell me about what you want to study. Those are usually going to be in every interview. Another one is about strengths and weaknesses. This may or may not come up in every single one, but it's a good idea to prepare for it because in some form, you'll probably want to talk about at least your strengths. And if they ask you about your weaknesses, you want to be prepared for that. So I think that this can sometimes be an intimidating question for people. It still intimidates me a little bit too. When I've been asked in job interviews, I always have to make sure that I'm prepared for this one because nobody likes to talk about their weaknesses, right? And maybe we like talking about our strengths, but we're not always prepared to choose one or like to have a really strong example of one. So yeah, this is a good one to think about beforehand so that you're ready with a good answer. So when they ask about your strengths, I would recommend thinking about a character quality as your strength. It doesn't have to necessarily be a specific skill. So you don't have to say, oh, you know, I'm really good at, I don't know, swimming or something. You know, that's not going to be relevant to like what we were talking about earlier, like how you would be as a student at the university. Usually character traits will be more effective. So, you know, saying that you're really adaptable or you're really resilient person, you persevere in difficult situations, maybe you're really creative. All of these things I think would indicate to the interviewer that you're somebody they want to have at their school. So try to think about different character traits that are still true for you, but that you could think of a good example of. So, you know, for example, if you say, oh, I'm a very adaptable person, try to think of a specific time you've been adaptable and then share that with them too. Even if they don't ask you for an example, they'll probably just say, oh, can you tell me, you know, what's your biggest strength and your biggest weakness? So they're not asking you for an example, but this will always make the answer stronger. Because if you just say, I'm an adaptable person, and that's it, you know, how do they know that you're telling the truth? How do they know, like, what would show them that that is actually true? And so if you have a good story you can tell about, oh yeah, you know, I was trying to, you know, complete this assignment for my school one time, and it turns out that the instructions were to go and research about a topic, and when I got to the library, then actually they didn't have the book that I was looking for about the thing, or I wasn't able to access the paper that I was trying to find, so I was able to pivot and, you know, find a different one instead. You know, that demonstrates to them that you are an adaptable person. You're not just saying it. So yeah, give an example. Same thing goes for when you share about your weakness. So I think sometimes people are tempted when they get asked this question to say, oh, I don't have any weaknesses. That is the wrong answer. Everybody has weaknesses. I have weaknesses, you have weaknesses, and the interviewer knows that too. So don't say you don't have any. I've also heard some people say the advice is to choose something that's not a real weakness. They say, oh, my weakness is that I'm too much of a perfectionist, so everything I do is perfect. That's also maybe not the strongest answer. The interviewers, like I said before, they want to know the authentic you. It's okay to be honest as long as you can frame it in the right way. So my advice for this question is to say a weakness that is true about you, but make it something that shows you can reflect on yourself and that you're always working to grow and improve yourself. So I think a good strategy for this one is to tell a story about something, a time that your weakness showed up, and what went wrong, but also what did you learn from it. So maybe you're not the most organized person. Maybe there was a time that you got an assignment in school. It was due on, you know, the 5th of the month, and on the 4th you realized, oh, actually, I haven't started yet. Oh no! And you scrambled, and you wrote your essay in one night, and then you turned it in on the 5th. But it wasn't your best work. But you recognized that was a weakness of yourself. So you went and you talked to your teacher, and you said, hey, I'm really, really sorry. I left it until the last minute because this is a bad habit of mine. I'm a procrastinator. I don't think I did my best work on this paper, but maybe in the next one, I'm going to start earlier, and I will do a better job on that one. And then the next time, you actually did start earlier. So that shows that you can recognize and reflect on yourself. You can recognize your weaknesses, and then you can do better the next time. And that is really what the interviewer cares about. They know that you have weaknesses. They know that not everybody is perfect, but they want to see that you're mature enough that you've demonstrated that you can learn from your mistakes, or that you're always working to improve your weaknesses. So that's how I recommend answering this question. Share specific examples and share stories that show good qualities about yourself. Okay, The next one is not necessarily a specific question, but is very common to see in interviews, especially job interviews, I would say, but sometimes they can come up in the college interviews too. And that's behavioral questions. So what is a behavioral question? It's when the interviewer asks you to tell them about a specific situation you've been in. So they might say something like, tell me about a challenge that you've had to overcome. Or tell me about a time when you received some criticism. What did you do? Tell me about a time when. So usually the questions will start with that. And so the general technique to answer a behavioral question in an interview is called the STAR method, STAR. And that stands for situation, task, action, and result. So what does that mean? So when you, so let's take this example. So tell me about a challenge that you've had to overcome. So you can describe the situation first. So you could say, okay, when I was in math class, we had to, or let's say maybe history class. I was in history class, we had to do a group project. I was with 4 other people. So that's the situation. And then the task would be, you know, I had to collaborate with these 4 other people. One of them didn't show up to any of our meetings. They didn't want to do any work. Sound familiar? You've probably been in this situation. So that was your task. Yeah, this person was being so difficult. I couldn't, you know, the other group members and I, we couldn't contact them. They were skipping the meetings. They weren't contributing to the project. What do we do? So then the action is, of course, what action you took. And this is kind of the key to answering the behavioral question. So, you know, maybe in that situation, you could say, oh, so I reached out to that person, and because they weren't being responsive, I asked them, oh, do you have something going on that maybe is stopping you from giving your best to this project? How can I help? How can I help you be successful so we can all be successful in the project? And it turns out that the result was that you found out that person was dealing with some family issues at home, and that's why they weren't contributing. And so then you offered to support them and also help them to contribute in a way that made sense for them, so that all of your group could be successful. So that's an example of how you can go over each of these parts to answer the question and in a way that shows your leadership quality, for example. So you, in that moment, you acted as a leader because you were willing to think about what's like another way that I can approach this situation? What's something that I can do to help motivate people or to reach out to people or problem solve when something's not going wrong? So behavioral questions, make sure that you are following all of these steps. So if you just say, I think sometimes people will start with only the first 1 or 2 parts. When they hear this, they'll say, tell me about a challenge you've had to overcome, and they'll be like, oh my God, I had this group project and it was so hard, somebody wasn't contributing. But they forget to do the action and the result. And that is the key to showing the interviewer that you are the person that they want. So yeah, think about some examples of difficult situations, because that will usually be what you'll get asked about. The question will be worded in different ways. Sometimes they'll ask you about a challenge, sometimes they'll ask you about a difficult situation, something like that. But usually, if you can think of some good examples from your life or from your school or your work that demonstrate good qualities about yourself, you can usually fit one of them into what the interviewer has asked you. Okay, and then I just want to provide, obviously the interviewer can ask you a whole lot of questions. So I just want to provide you a few other examples of common questions or the types of questions that you might get asked in a university interview. So other things, so where do you see yourself in 5 years? So that was one of the answers that we had earlier. Great job with that. That's a common one. They want to see, if you go to this university, what are you going to do after you graduate? Again, how can we be proud to call you an alumni? What do you hope to accomplish with the degree that you're going to get? What is your favorite book? So I think this might seem random because it seems like a personal question when it doesn't relate to you studying or your work or anything like that. But I think this can be, like I said, it's a good opportunity for the interviewer to get to know you as a person and also you as a student that would fit into their university community. So if you talk about your favorite book, not only does that show that you like to read, which is always a great quality to have as a student, but it gives them a little bit of like personality. So if you say your favorite book is this really interesting like nonfiction book that is about business, then that shows that you are interested in learning about business in your own free time. If you talk about like a really classic literature book that you've read and you really loved, that shows that you're really interested in reading about a lot of classic novels or interesting literature that is respected by a lot of people. So the answer to this one can also be very insightful for interviewers. How do you handle stressful situations? So again, this is a little bit of like a behavioral question. It's kind of tell me a time or tell me a situation that you've had to handle. So thinking of examples of maybe difficult or stressful situations that you can share for this kind of question. What is your favorite subject and why? So again, trying to get a sense of why do you want to study what you're saying you want to study? Why do you want to go to this university? How will you be as a student there? And then maybe they'll ask you a specific question about that college or university. So maybe there's something specific about that school that they want to see incoming students have or that you know about. So again, do your research. That's really important. I say especially for the more competitive schools in the US, they always want to see that you have really researched that specific school. It's not that you just want to go to the US in general. You want to go to their university. So try to make it specific. Okay, so that is our second section about answering common interview questions and different strategies for that. Any questions before we move on? Yes?
So I just wanted to ask, I always get confused when the interviewer asks me about the strength and weaknesses question because, to be honest, I don't really know myself. So if I would say I'm adaptable and I have to imagine myself being adaptable, I often find the environment didn't support me to be adaptable, so I become quiet and I often find the environment support me to be adaptable. So I just don't know how to handle that.
Yeah. I think it can be hard to think of examples for sure. I think that's why preparation is really important because if you get asked on the spot, tell me about your strength or tell me, when you've had to be adaptable, your mind goes blank and you're in the middle of the interview. You're like, oh no, what do I say? I don't know. So that's why I think taking the time to prepare for the interview and think about, okay, what are some characteristics about myself that I do think are my strengths? So really reflect on, like you going through school or like if you've worked before, what have you been like at work? What have you done in your extracurricular activities? What are things about you that you like about yourself or maybe that other people have told you? Maybe a teacher's told you something, maybe your friend has told you like, oh yeah, you're a really friendly person. You always you always talk to people and make them feel welcome. That's a strength. Maybe your teacher has told you, oh, you're a really hardworking student. I always notice you're so diligent. You turn everything in on time. You always do a really great job. So that's a strength too that you could talk about. So yeah, take the time to reflect. I know it can take a little bit of time and work to think of not only the strengths but also the examples for them. But I think if you maybe like even if you like use you can use like ChatGPT if it helps you to like talk to somebody, you can talk to a real person too. Talk to your friends, talk to your family. What do they see as your strengths, and maybe what are some times that you've had to use those strengths? But yeah, I believe in you. You can do it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the question. Okay, so let's move on to the third section. So we'll talk about communicating in a professional way, which will be, of course, important when you're in the interview. So, another quiz for you. We have this picture here with 4 people who are getting set for an interview. So which of these people looks the most engaged and professional? Who thinks that it's this first person on the left? You can raise your hand. Who thinks it's the second person? This guy. Maybe one hand. Okay, who thinks it's this third person here? Okay, one person. And then who thinks it's this last one on the right? Nobody. Okay, so I have one vote for this guy and one vote for this girl. Okay, so the one that I was actually thinking of is this first one here. But I can see what you might be seeing in these other ones. So why didn't you choose the other ones? Let's say, okay, I think this fourth one here, nobody voted for her, right? What is she doing wrong? Why don't you think she's interested and engaged for her interview? She seems moody. Yeah, she's kind of, she's making a weird face. She's like looking off to the side. She's not looking at the person she's talking to. I think also, some of her body language too. Her body is a little bit closed off. She's not necessarily engaged with the person she's talking to. Okay, and then, so when I noticed nobody voted for this one. So what did you think she was doing wrong? Why don't you think she's engaged? She seems too. Oh, blank expression. Okay, I can see that. I can see. I'm very open to interpretation here. I think this is just a good chance for us to discuss what are we seeing in these people, and maybe you don't see the same thing as me. So I agree. I think if your expression is too blank or you don't look like you're engaged, that could be a warning sign too. So I respect that answer. Thank you. Okay, so what about this girl? What do we think that she could improve? She's too smug and overconfident. Okay, so maybe she's crossing her arms. I think that can be maybe not the most professional way to sit. Also, I think crossed arms, especially in combination with the way she's crossing her legs, it makes you look very closed off, right? You're not open to what the person is saying. You're kind of like, oh, I'm just gonna think whatever I think. And then for this guy, his body language too. So it's maybe not the most professional to be like, slunched over when you're talking to an interviewer. You want to look like you are ready and you're prepared, you're engaged. You're not just, casually sitting around when you're talking to them. So, okay, great job answering the question. I love that we got to discuss about different things that we were all seeing in the picture, and I got to see something new that I wasn't seeing before too. So I think all four of these people maybe have something they could improve, and hopefully we can talk about what are the right things to do and not just the wrong things in the next slide. So body language, like we were just saying, so maintaining eye contact. So I think a lot of you noticed in the picture, actually none of the people in the picture are looking straight at us. They're all looking off to the side. We don't know where the person they're talking to is, but maintaining eye contact with your interviewer is important. I would say especially if they're American, that can be really important for Americans, especially compared to maybe like Asian or Indonesian standards. I think in Indonesia, it's more polite, especially if someone is like older than you or they're higher position to you. You don't always make direct eye contact with them, but in America, many of these interviewers would probably prefer that you look them directly in the eye, at least for some of the time. Sitting upright with good posture. So we saw in here, not everybody is sitting up with good posture. So that's a way to show that you are interested in what they're saying. You are prepared, you're engaged. You're not, just daydreaming about something else. Smiling naturally. Smiles can go a long way, as I'm sure you know. And then avoid crossing your arms or looking distracted. So again, showing that you are paying attention to what the interviewer is saying. So that's body language. Voice and tone is also really important. So when you're talking, make sure that you're speaking clearly and confidently. Even if you don't feel confident, you can still pretend to be confident. And actually, there's research that has shown
the more that you act confident, even if you don't feel it inside, the more it actually affects how you feel. So it's kind of like a reverse, we think about like, oh, if I feel confident, then I'm gonna act confident. But actually, it also works in reverse, where if you act confident, it can make you feel more confident too. So try to act confident, or at least, polite when you are talking to the interviewer, and that can actually affect your mindset throughout the interview. Avoid speaking too quickly. This is one that I often a mistake that I often make myself. Actually, when I feel nervous, I speak too fast. I think it's a common one that people do. So maybe if you want to practice at home, either with a friend or you can practice with somebody that you know who's willing to do this with you, just practice answering some of those questions we had earlier, and practice saying them in a clear and not too slow, but you don't speak too quickly as well. Sound enthusiastic and engaged. So when you're talking, don't say, "Oh yeah, I'm so and so, and I guess I'd really like to study English at your school." That if you say it like that, they're not going to think you want to go to their school. You have to sound like you are enthusiastic, like you really do want to go to that university. Being polite and respectful, I think many Indonesians know how to do this very well, but yes, make sure that you're being polite. Even though it might seem very casual at sometimes, they're asking you questions about your hobbies or your life, make sure you're still being polite even through all of that. And then finally, I know I mentioned this earlier, but don't stress too much about your English. It's okay if you make some mistakes. Like I said before, authenticity is the most important, not perfection. It's all right if you make some grammar mistakes, or if you have to stop and think about what you want to say a few times. I've paused for like a full 5 or 10 seconds in an interview before, which seems like a very long time when it's happening. It feels awkward. But they know that you're a person who might need to think about what you're going to say, and that's okay. It's actually very common when an interviewer asks a question for somebody to, speaking of someone who has now interviewed some people for various jobs or various programs and things, it's actually totally normal for me to ask a question and then the person's like, "Oh, that's a great question. Let me think for a little bit." They take a few seconds, gather your thoughts, and then you answer. And sometimes that can make all the difference in helping you feel more calm and confident when you answer. And if you need to like gather your thoughts in English too, that can be okay too. So don't stress about having perfect English when you are in the interview, as long as you can be understood and you can communicate well. Okay, and then other things related to professionalism. So you want to come off as a very professional person, obviously, who they would want to have at their university. So again, arrive early or on time. Things that you don't expect always happen. Make sure you leave some extra time. Dress neatly, so it doesn't have to be necessarily like, you don't have to show up in a full business suit or like, I don't know, your traditional attire or anything like that. That's a little too much, but dress in polite and neat clothing. Listen carefully before answering. So I know this can be hard when you're feeling nervous. You're just thinking about like what you want to say, and maybe you missed something that the interviewer said. But this should be a two-way street, because you can also learn something about the interviewer, the way that they ask the question, or maybe they want to share, if they're an alumni, maybe they want to share something about their time at the university. And so that can give you information too. So listen carefully to them. Be honest. Again, do not lie in your interview. I know that it feels like there's this pressure to be this really impressive person. You want them to think that you're really cool or that you're really competent and smart. But please be honest. Like I said, they will know if you're being authentic. They want to see that you're showing your true personality, not just saying what you think they want you to say. There's no need to bring a gift or any other items. Just bring yourself and your polite clothing. That's enough to the interview. Something optional that you can do, again, this is truly optional, you don't have to, but it can be a nice gesture, is after you go home from the interview, you can send a thank you email afterwards. So whoever it was, whether they're an admissions staff or if they're an alumni, you can send them an email and just say, "Oh, thank you so much for taking the time to interview me." Especially for alumni, that's a volunteer job usually. So they're not usually getting paid or anything. They're just doing it because they really love their university. So yeah, you can just thank them for taking their time to interview you. It was really nice to get to know them. You can mention something specific that you discussed in the interview. So if you learned about, something like a cool program at the school or an activity that exists at the school that you didn't know about before, just mention that. Say, I loved getting to learn about the cool archery club that you were in when you were at the university. That sounds really interesting. So that shows that you were listening to them and you still remember that detail when you go home. And then finally, reiterate your interest in the school. So just say, I'm so looking forward to hearing back from the admissions committee. I just want to reiterate, I'm very interested in studying at your university. So yeah, the email doesn't have to be super long. It can, and again, it's truly optional, but it can be something nice for them to receive. And it shows that you're very interested and you were listening. Okay, sometimes, I think I mentioned at the beginning that sometimes your interview will be online. It's not always in person. So there are some special considerations if you are doing an online interview. I would say the first thing is to try and find a quiet and clean environment. This is not the same as video calling your friend when you're just, in the MRT and you're like, hey, what's going on? And there's all these people behind you, there's noise, you go through a zone with no signal and then you get cut off. You don't do that during your interview. Make sure that you have a space that there's not going to be people walking behind you. Hopefully you have some kind of either blank background or at least a neat background. You can always blur your background too, if that's not an option. But quiet is also important. You want them to be able to hear what you're saying without extra noise cutting into your sound. Ideally, you're not going to be saying, what'd you say? I'm so sorry. Can you repeat that? Can you repeat that? What'd you say again? Because that's not going to make for a good interview. Test your internet connection and your camera or microphone beforehand. You never know what could go wrong with technical issues. You're already stressed enough probably with preparing for the interview itself and the content. You don't want to also be stressing about technical issues on the day of. Make sure your device is charged kind of on the same note. And if you are using like a phone or something, make sure your notifications are muted. You don't want to be distracted by, your friend having drama while, and messages are coming in while you're trying to do the interview. Sign on extra early. So same thing. Even if it's not in person, if you're doing online, you might think, oh, okay, it's going to be easy. I don't have to go anywhere. I can just sign on exactly at the time. But you never know what will happen with the tech issues, with, maybe your computer crashes exactly when you try to sign on. You have to go do it on your family's computer or your phone or something. So always leave extra time. Camera presence. So I know we talked about making eye contact when you're talking to someone in person. Eye contact also matters when you are on a video call. So try to look at the camera either in your phone or your laptop, whatever you're using, because then the interviewer will still feel like they are talking to you and that you are looking at them, you're interested in what they're saying. The camera angle also matters. So again, this is not going to be one of those video calls where you're holding your phone below you and somebody's looking up at your face. That's a really awkward angle to be at if you're in an interview. Maybe it's okay with your friends, but it's not okay for this. So make sure that your computer or your phone, whatever device you're using, is at hopefully a straight-on angle to your face. Not too low, not too high. And then same thing with the distance. You don't want to be like way up in the screen so your face is like cut off on the edges. You also don't want to be too far away from the screen so that they can't really see your face. They want to be able to see the expressions that you're making. So try to set up your camera just right at the right distance and the right angle. And finally, do not multitask during the interview. They will be able to tell if you are constantly looking down at your phone or you're trying to do something else, or if you're on your computer and you have a different tab open, maybe you have a tab open with your answers written down that you prepared. Don't do that. They will see your eyes going over to the other tab. They'll see that you're clicking something and it's distracting for them. They think that something's going on. So don't multitask. You totally got this. If you prepared for the interview, you know that information in your brain. You don't need to have it on the screen with you. Just try to focus on looking at the camera, making that eye contact with them through the screen, and they will feel so much more like you're engaged. Okay, so that's professional communication. Quick questions before we move on to the next section? All right, so the next one is asking thoughtful questions. So again, I think the majority of interview preparation is usually you're focusing on what questions are they going to ask me? How do I make sure I'm going to answer things in a professional way? How do I make sure I'm using professional body language? I'm getting there on time, all these things that we've talked about so far. And a common neglected section of the interview is the part where you get to ask questions to the interviewer. And as the question mentioned at the beginning of the session, this can be a really good way to show that you are engaged in the interview and that you've done your research. So yes, this is not only does this let you show that you've done research, but it's also a great opportunity for you to learn more about the university from someone who's directly involved. So if they're an alumni, they went to that school, they were a student there, and that's what you want to do, so you can learn from their experience. If they're an admissions staff, their job is to know like everything there is to know about that university. So you can ask them questions that you don't know the answer to, and they can answer it for you. That's such a great chance for you to have. So good questions to ask will show that you are curious. They'll show that you were prepared to ask the question and that you have a genuine interest in the school. So there are some good and bad questions to ask. You should avoid asking questions that can easily be answered by the website. So if it's something really obvious that you could have just Googled, or you could have just gone to the University of Illinois.edu and it's just right there on their front page, they don't want to be asked a question like that because it's really obvious. It shows that you actually did not do your research. Questions that only focus on their prestige or their rankings, that's a little bit it comes across as superficial to the interviewer. They want you to show that you're interested in the actual experience of studying at their university, or what you're going to learn, how you're going to grow, how you'll contribute to the community, not just that you want to go to the #1 school in America or the #1 school in that state. And then any questions that make you sound like you're not interested or that you're not prepared. Again, the interview's purpose is for you to show that you are excited to go to their school. You are interested in them, and so you want the questions to also demonstrate that. So I think some examples might be good here. I know I've talked a lot about like generally what questions you should ask. So I think I'm going to do an activity here about what to ask or what to skip. So I'll show questions on the screen that are examples of what you could ask to the interviewer, and then you tell me, do you think we should ask this or should we skip it? All right, you ready? Okay, so first one. So what kinds of students usually thrive here? What kinds of students usually do really well at this university? Ask or skip? Ask. Yes, ding, 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 good job. Okay, so next question. Is your school ranked really highly? Skip. X. Okay, yeah, don't ask that. Especially because that is also something you could Google. Hopefully you know if their school is ranked highly. Okay, next. What opportunities do students often overlook? Ask. Yes, that's a deep question, and it's something that you definitely cannot find on Google. It's something that only someone who went to that school, or maybe somebody who works there, would know how to tell you. How easy are the classes? Am I going to get an A automatically? Yeah, skip, X. What surprised you most about this college? Ask, yes. Yeah, any questions, again, that are like, they sound a little bit deeper, they show that you're really thinking about what it's going to be like there. Can you tell me more about the campus community? Ask, yes. Yeah, maybe you can find out a little bit by searching online, but I think it's also a good opportunity if they're an alumni, they can share about their personal experience, or if they're an admissions staff, maybe they have some special insights that they can share too. What is the minimum GPA I need to get accepted? Skip. Yeah, that's an easy one to find online. Don't ask that. How would you describe the teaching style here? Ask. Yes, that's a good question. It shows that you are thinking about what it's going to be like to study there. Do students collaborate or do they compete more? Ask or skip? Oh, we don't know. I would say ask that. I think that it shows that you're thinking about what will it be like to study there? Am I going to be put on a lot of like group projects that I work together with people? Are students really competitive and everybody's like working really hard to do better than other people? That's something that you do want to know, and it's not necessarily going to be online. So I say ask. I didn't really research the school very much. Can you explain it to me? Skip. Yes. What traditions or events are popular on campus? Ask. Yes. Great job. I think that's my last one. Oh, just one more. Sorry. Will this school guarantee me a high-paying job? Skip. Yes. Hopefully they do, and many schools, they will have statistics on their website about their graduates and the careers that they're going into, but you don't want that to be the first impression you're making. You should be more interested in the campus experience, in what it's going to be like to study in the classes, in the academics. So yeah, those are just some examples of what you can ask to the interviewer. But again, I would also emphasize again to be authentic. So what do you actually want to know? Like if you're going to go all the way to the US and study for 2 years, 4 years, that's a really big decision. Like you probably are going to be wondering something about what it's going to be like to do that. So what questions do you actually have that you want to know? I think this is a good chance for you to ask those to someone who can answer them. Okay, so how am I doing on time? We've got about 5 minutes? Okay, 10. Okay, we've got about 10 minutes for our final activity. I see some people have come in too, so this is a great chance for you to join in too. So let's put it all together. So we talked about the culture of US college interviews. We talked about some specific questions that you might get asked, how to answer them. We talked about how to communicate professionally. And then finally, some questions that you can ask to interviewers. So I want you to be thinking about all the things we just talked about and put it all together in a hopefully low pressure environment. Find a partner, so somebody sitting next to you, and choose a question from the list below. Or you can think of your own. So I put some examples here of questions you can ask each other, but if you have a question you want to ask your friend, or you have a question that you saw in one of the earlier slides that you want to ask, feel free to do that too. So practice asking and answering each other. Using all the strategies that we talked about before. So if it's a behavioral question, remember the STAR method. If it's about, why do you want to go to this school? Remember what we talked about of having a well-researched and prepared answer, things like that. So let's take about 5 minutes per person. So one person can ask a question, and the other person will answer for about 4 or 5 minutes, and then I'll call out when to switch. Okay? Ready, set, go. Or we can give it in the jadi bisa kan. You did a great job. I hope it's helpful for them. Yeah. Okay, if you have not switched people yet, please switch now. So switch who's asking and answering the question. How do we know if there's anybody on the live stream? Okay, 30 seconds. 30 seconds to wrap up. Okay, so let's come back now. I heard some really good discussions happening. I heard some really great answers when I was walking around earlier. So I'm going to ask for a brave volunteer who thought that their partner had a really great answer to their question. Who thought they asked the question, they got a really, really great answer? Yeah? Okay, what question did you ask and what answer did you get?
I asked the second question, what do you like to do outside of school?
Okay.
And she answered like really effectively, and then she could expand the answer. So it's really engaging.
Okay, what specifically did she do to expand the answer?
She answered like she did sports outside of school, so she told me like what kind of sports, and then why sport makes her happy, something like that.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's a really great way to answer that question. Again, it's all about showing that you would be a great student at that school. So if you do sports outside of school for your extracurricular, showing like, yeah, what kind of sports you do, why do you like it, and yeah, maybe how you would be involved if you went to their university. That's a really great way to answer. So thank you. I think let's give, we've got some prizes over here. Let's give one notebook to each person. Thank you so much for volunteering. Sounds like you were able to put together what you learned really well. Do we have any other volunteers who thinks that their partner had a really great answer to their question? Be brave. I believe in you. It's okay if you don't want to share though. I know this is on the spot. There will be more chances to win a notebook later. Yes. What was your question? Oh, sorry, we've got a microphone coming.
So I asked her, what do you like to do outside of school? And she answered like organizing an event, which in real life she is a part of an event organizer team. So she expand like sometimes she takes PR jobs and others. So she expands it and elaborate it. So it's engaging.
Okay, wow, yeah, that sounds like a great way to answer the question. I think doing any kind of like side hustle work, especially something like event organizing, shows that you have extra skills that would add to you being a student at that university. So yeah, and it sounds like you impressed your partner interviewer here. So yeah, let's have more notebooks for them. Good job. Okay, so this was just like a very short practice activity. I just wanted to try and get you talking. I know that sometimes it can feel awkward, or it feels weird to try and practice on your own at home. It's hard to get yourself to do it, or to like say it out loud, or find someone who will talk with you. So I just wanted this to be a quick opportunity for you to practice doing some interview questions. But I would really, really strongly advise you, if you get to the interview stage in your admissions process later, find someone who can do this with you. Just give them this list of questions. Give them. I think the slides will be available online later. You can always watch the recording again. Give them some of the questions from this. Ask AI, for a list of questions if you want to have practice some other ones, and just practice talking through your answers, because you never know. Like sometimes if it's your first time answering something verbally on the spot in the interview, it doesn't come out exactly the way that you meant it, but the chances are much greater if you've practiced answering it before that you'll be able to cover the points that you want to. So preparation is everything with this. Okay, so just wrapping up, I want to just give you some key takeaways. So we had a lot of different things that we talked about in this session today. We had 4 different sections of material. So I want you to really remember one thing from each of them. So first, US interview culture. The college interview is a chance for you to show your personality beyond just what is in your test scores and your essays. This is your chance to shine and be a real person, not just words on a page. Second, so when you're answering questions, how do you want the interviewer to picture you on campus? Make sure all of your answers to the questions are connected to that picture. So like we just talked about with these examples of people here answering questions, make sure that everything you answer is showing some characteristic about you or showing something about yourself that would make you a good student at that university. Communicate with professional body language, voice, and etiquette, including if your interview is virtual. The rules still apply there. You should still look engaged, even if it's through camera. And finally, ask thoughtful questions that demonstrate your interest in the school. So we've had some examples there. Think of other questions that you are wondering. But yeah, anything that demonstrates you are interested. Okay, so before we just go to Q&A, I just want to thank all of you for being here and thank America for inviting me to do this. I really hope that this session was at least a little bit helpful to you. I know that college interviews can be really scary and really intimidating, especially if you've never done one before, which usually if this is your first time applying for college, it's the first time you've done a college interview. So I hope that this gave you a few tips that you can use to be successful in the interviews. And yeah, I really just appreciate everyone for being engaged. I know I had a lot of different activities and I was asking you to talk a lot during this when maybe you weren't expecting to. So thank you so much for participating. And thank you again, America, for hosting me.
Thank you, Lauren. Please join me. Okay, maybe we have a little bit of time for a Q&A session. Jadi aku akan kasih kesempatan mungkin maybe 2 to 3 questions untuk teman-teman yang ada di sini dan teman-teman yang ada online, yang join us online. Mungkin satu dulu pertanyaan dari sini. Boleh yang pakai baju hijau? Please introduce yourself.
Okay, hello Miss. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Emanisa. I would like to ask perhaps 2 questions. The first one is, will the interviewers ask to us regarding our writing project or the research that we will conduct when we study there? And the second one is, is the personality valued higher rather than our experience in relevant field or expertise or our expertise? Because in your presentation, the personality is valued higher rather than the test score. But is that also felt higher when we compare to our experience in the relevant field? Yeah, just like that. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much for the questions. Just as a clarifying question, so are you applying for undergraduate or for graduate programs?
Yeah, I'm applying for postgraduate or LLM program, Master of Laws.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think that helps give me some extra context for your question. So yeah, I think if you are applying for a postgraduate program, you are definitely much more likely to be asked about the research that you're going to do in that, or maybe, yeah, the projects that you would do, because that's there's definitely a greater emphasis on that for grad school. So yeah, be prepared. I think for grad school, it's going to be a lot more focused on your field of study and especially what niche you want to pursue. Sometimes depending on the program, if it's a more academically focused program, they want to hear, like, when you're applying, that you have some kind of idea of what you want to do for your thesis even, or at least the topic that you want to pursue. It's okay if it changes later, but you should have something specific to say. So yeah, that's a really great question. Definitely have, I think that's as key as what I talked about with like, why do you want to study here? Yeah, you should definitely have specific professors that you can name, things like that. And then in terms of your second question about personality versus, yeah, like your experience, expertise, definitely for grad programs, I think your expertise matters a lot. So yeah, I think I was focusing a little bit more on undergrad, I think, in my general advice here, but I think it still can apply. But yeah, I would say for graduate programs, they're going to be much more academically focused. And I think also for undergrad, if any of you are applying, the interview is definitely a place for your personality to show. But remember that your overall admissions is still being evaluated based on all of the other stuff too. So obviously your essays matter a lot, your test scores do matter a lot, just not necessarily in the interview. So the interview is where they can get some extra information about you, but it is still only one piece in the overall picture of your admissions. So make sure that the other pieces are strong too. But yeah, I would say, again, for graduate programs, definitely be prepared to talk about your field and show that you know something about your field.
Right. Does that answer your question? Thank you. But that also applies for scholarship.
Yes, this also applies for scholarship interviews. So if you are applying for a scholarship and they ask you for an interview, I think a lot of this will still apply. It's just that anytime I said, like something that shows you know about the university or about that school, just replace that with like the scholarship itself. So many scholarships have a mission. They'll say, oh, this scholarship is only for, especially for people who want to study law, or maybe this scholarship is especially for like Muslim students, or this scholarship is for people who want to study in the US. So usually scholarships will have some kind of focus, so make sure that whatever you're saying aligns with that mission or that focus.
Okay, so doing a research is very important.
Yes.
Nice. Okay, second question from someone with a pink shirt. Please introduce yourself also.
Okay, hello, my name is Jasmine, and I really wanted to know from your perspective. So I remember one influencer saying that if you wanna go to undergraduate programs, you should go to UK because the students there are treated like an adult and expected to be independent, rather than in the US. If you go on a master degree, they still treated you like an extension of high school. So I just wanted to know from your perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. This is debunking the myth.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, that's really interesting. I don't think I've actually heard that before. Yeah, I can't speak directly about like the UK specifically because I haven't gone to school there. But I would say for the US, you are definitely still expected to be an adult, whether that's undergraduate or if you're in a graduate program. 18 is the age that you become an adult in the U.S. legally, so you are still expected to be responsible for yourself, for your academics, for behaving well at the school. So yeah, I think for a lot of people in the U.S. too, that this is the first time that they are living away from their family. And so that can sometimes be a transitional period. So sometimes campuses in the US will have like special services or offices that are meant to support you in that. I think that is one thing that is different from other countries. So oftentimes you'll have a lot of like these kind of like counseling services, or you might have like different, like the office of like residential life, or the office of student life, things like that, that you don't always see in other countries. And those are meant to support you. They can have events, they can have you can have meetings with them. You can get a lot of advice and support from them in case you are transitioning to living on your own for the first time. But you are still expected to act like an adult. So don't think that that's like a myth or an excuse or something.
Hopefully that answers. Okay, do we have another questions? If not, I have one question from online audience. Okay, can you please introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Michi. I wanna ask, why do sometimes interviewers answer cut the answer before we are finish our word? Thank you.
Is it common thing that the interviewer probably cut your answer before you finish the answer?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and I think will help you know what to expect. So I think that a good answer is usually going to be like 1 to 2 minutes long. That's a very, very approximate estimate of things. Sometimes a good answer will be a little bit longer. Sometimes a good answer might be a little bit shorter. But usually, you should answer longer than just one sentence, and you should not be speaking like an entire essay. So I think if you're starting to ramble and you're getting off topic, or you're sharing information that is not relevant anymore, the interviewer might ask you to move on to the next question. But I think if you are still talking about something that is directly answering their question, it's still relevant to the topic, it's relevant to how you would be at their university, they're not going to interrupt you, I don't think.
That's good. Thank you. But one last question before we end this session. Sometimes when you're in the interview, you get so nervous, right? And then during that, your trends of thought just left, and you just forget what you're going to answer. How do you avoid, or how do you overcome that?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question that I'm sure a lot of people are wondering. It's something that happens to more people than you think when they're doing interviews. So yeah, you're feeling so nervous, your mind just goes totally blank. What do you do? So I would say number one is like a prevention strategy. So I think the more that you prepare for the interview, the more automatically those answers are going to come to you. So really, like what we were talking about earlier with practicing all these questions, if you've practiced saying these answers out loud before to somebody, chances are you're going to be able to still say them out loud again. So that's number one, is prevention. But let's say you didn't do that, or for some reason, you still prepared, but your mind still goes blank, and you're sitting there in the interview and you still don't know what to say. It's okay to tell the interviewer that you feel nervous. And sometimes that can help you feel less nervous. I've said that too before. When I've been in a job interview, I've been like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like I just need to take a second because I'm feeling nervous because I really care about getting this job. Can I just start over? And that's okay, because interviewers are humans too. They've all been in your place before, because if they went to college, they've done a college interview. If they got a job before, they've also had a job interview too. And chances are they felt nervous as well. So it's okay if you acknowledge that. And like I said in the presentation, like if you need to take a few seconds to just gather your thoughts or to think again, that's all right. I know it feels awkward at the time, but really a few seconds is not going to be a big deal. So feel free to take that.
Okay, so it's actually being honest to them and say like, hi, I'm actually nervous in this interview, so please let me breathe for a little bit.
Exactly.
Okay, maybe professionally.
Authenticity, not perfection.
Right, and also be honest. Okay, thank you so much, Mbak Lauren. I have learned so many things from this one session, and hopefully you guys too. So if you guys still have any questions after this, would it be okay to stay a little bit and then answer their questions offline?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So I will stay here for a few minutes afterwards. If anybody wants to come to me and ask like a one-on-one question, if anybody online is asking questions, I'm very happy to answer those.
Thank you so much, Mbak Lauren. Please kasih applause lagi buat Mbak Lauren.
Thank you so much, everyone. You're a great audience.
Yeah, thank you so much. Again, a little bit of a reminder, if you guys still are interested in our gift of the English proficiency test, do not forget to meet our EducationUSA advisors. So thank you so much. I'll give it back to our e-guide.
Okay, thank you very much to our speaker, Lauren Chow, and also our moderator, Camila Latupono. Okay, we give another big round of applause once again, everyone. Okay. And also earlier today, we have given our online participant a question of the day. And the question is, true or false, preparing questions to ask your interviewer can show that you are genuinely interested and engaged during a university admission interview. And the correct answer is true. Asking thoughtful questions can demonstrate curiosity, preparation, and interest in the program or university. Congratulations and also shout out to @kaisarg underscore from Instagram for answering it correctly. And one more reminder, everyone, do not forget to book your appointment with Education USA advisors online or in person to get a chance at winning the English proficiency test before 9 June at the latest. And if you wanted to know more about our upcoming event, don't forget to follow our social media platforms. We have YouTube, Instagram, X, and Facebook at AT America, or visit our official website to know more about our program at www.atamerica.or.id. My name is Nora Fakira, and thank you very much for joining us tonight. I'll see you at the next At America event. Bye.